Okay, welcome to the Fertility Mindset and Meltdowns book launch online, 2nd of November, World Fertility Day. We are going to let everybody in and everyone's going to come through. They're coming through now. Welcome, everybody. If you're here for Fertility Mindset and Meltdown book launch, you're in the right place. Please may I ask you to mute yourself, and that's just to avoid any kind of background noise. Please note that this session is being recorded, so if you do not want to have your face on video, please make sure that your video is so I am going around meeting people just in case you are wondering what's going on. My name is Helen Lewis and I am the director of Literally PR. We're a book PR marketing agency, and it's my pleasure this evening to host Lisa Ashworth, who is a professional fertility mindset coach, professional at life, fertility coach, and she's written this amazing book called Fertility Mindset and Meltdown. So that's what we're all here for today. Like I say, really appreciate it if you could mute yourselves, and if you have any problems with the Zoom, you just got to pop out and come back in again, follow the same link. As I say, we are recording, so I totally understand if you'd rather not be on video. That's absolutely fine. And if you've got questions, we are going to be asking Lisa some questions that we've already pre-prepared, but we're also going to be opening up to anyone who wants to ask a question. Now, again, totally understanding that you might not want to necessarily ask in the big group. So what you can do is you can message me directly if you wish to. So Helen Lewis, and I will ask your question on your behalf and make it anonymous. Alternatively, if you want to, towards the end, unmute yourself and ask a question directly to Lisa. Again, we'll work that out near the time. So I think we've got pretty much, that's me filling the space while everyone comes in. I think we're pretty much ready to go. So let me just get that on. Okay, brilliant. If you could, like I say, just make sure you're muted, that would be wonderful. Okay, let's kick off. So today, as I say, let's kick off, someone comes in. I love that. Today is World Fertility Day, and we're in the middle of National Fertility Awareness Week. So I don't really think there could be a better time, really, to release a book on this subject. This is a book about fertility. Obviously, the title really does spell out exactly what the book's about. It couldn't be any more perfectly clear. Lisa Ashworth is an amazing woman. I've only known her now for a couple of months already. I can just see how lovely she is. Just the chat we had before confirms it for me as well. She has both personal and professional experience. She's so compassionate, offers real practical support to people through coaching, and now she's got this book which will reach so many more people and make it so much more accessible, which is just wonderful. This is actually our first fertility book that we've worked on, and we've done more than 600 campaigns over the past 13 years. So it sort of shows that it's much needed to have a book like this that's practical, personal, compassionate, really, really helpful for people. As I say, I totally understand for the people that have just joined us that this can be a really difficult conversation to have, and we want you to feel really safe and supported on this book launch and Q&A session. If there's any questions that you have and you want to ask me directly, to pass on to Lisa at the Q&A at the end, I will do that anonymously. Okay, so the book is called Fertility Mindset and Meltdowns. It's published by the UK's only mental health and wellbeing publisher, which is called Trigger, and it's under their Cherish Editions imprint. The book is available to buy directly from the publisher. I'm just going to pop this link into the chat box now, so you've all got it, so that if anyone hasn't already got their book, or indeed if somebody wants to buy one as a result of this launch, then there's your link to get it directly from the publisher. The reason we're saying go to the publisher is because, rather excitingly, the book has basically sold out of the initial release of the number of titles that have been sent out from distribution. And very excitingly, it has already reached a best-selling position on Amazon, which we're all over the moon about. So Lisa's book has actually reached number 11 already, which is incredible on day one for a debut writer. So we're really, really excited. Congratulations. It's so brilliant. It's such brilliant news, and very, like I say, very, very well deserved. I can't honestly think of an author that deserves that more than Lisa. So I am going to introduce you to the star of the show off the back of that amazing revelation about being an Amazon bestseller already on day one. And I would like to introduce you, and please give a warm welcome by doing this, I
Oh
think,
God.
muted, to Lisa Ashworth.
Oh my goodness. Oh, thank you so much, everybody. I'm a little bit nervous. I've gone all shaky, so I'm a bit nervous. But Helen just told me that news about the Amazon because we were panicking about half an hour ago because my friends were texting me saying it's gone up in price. It said it's not available for 6 weeks, but she's just told me that's because it sold a lot of copies. So that is absolutely amazing. But thank you everybody for turning up tonight. Quite good having the storm because people haven't gone out, so they've probably logged on to this instead. Um, I just thought, I know some of you on the call, but there's quite a few of you that I don't know. So I thought I would just give a bit of background to my fertility story, really, because obviously that's what the book's all about. Basically, it took me 10 years to conceive my children, over two different relationships. I was always diagnosed with unexplained infertility. I had all sorts of investigations, took various medical drugs, procedures. I had two IUIs, sadly, one miscarriage. Eventually, we turned to IVF. I also spent hundreds of pounds on alternative therapies, everything from reflexology and acupuncture through to boiling up Chinese herbs, you name it. If I thought it was going to get me pregnant, I did it. But in the end, we did 5 IVFs, and I did the fifth one just as I was turning 40. And amazingly, not only did it work, but we had two embryos put back in, and one of the embryos split into two. So we ended up with not two, but three babies. So I had triplets at the age of 41. So that was obviously a major surprise. And so that's another story. But, and then professionally, I'm also a qualified coach and I specialize in career transition coaching. And but after the children, a few years after the children were born, I also started actually coaching women going through a fertility struggle. And it was a bit of a hobby business I sort of had on the side. And I was sharing emotional support and sharing with them the tools that I use basically to work on my mindset when I was going through it all. So that's kind of how all this really began, to be honest. But now, fast forward, the triplets are 11. They've just started at secondary school. So we're in a different place to when they were babies. And I had a bit more time on my hands, and I finally was able to write this book. Yes, so that's a little bit about me, really.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was perfect. And I think, the fact, as I keep saying, is that you've got the professional and you've got the personal experience, and it's really clear in the book that you are so understanding of what people will be feeling at that point. So even though, the kids are now 11, it feels to me like almost like it's still so real for you. And I think part of that is because of the people that you're still working with and talking to, and you're living it sort of still, really, aren't you, by helping other people?
Yeah, and you don't forget what you went through, really. I mean, obviously you're launched into then a new chapter of your life when you do have children, but you never forget what you go through. And writing the book obviously brought it all back as well.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a very tough time.
So tell us a little bit about the actual book itself then, Lisa. I think you might be potentially treating us to a bit of an opening page reading, perhaps, or a bit of a reading.
Yes. Just to give you what it's about in a nutshell. So it's all about how to manage the emotions of trying to conceive. So, it's mostly about the mindset aspects of it all, and how, the mental strain when you're going through this can literally take you to rock bottom. And it's not something that people really talk about. I think because it's so private, it's such a personal thing. So this book is really an insight into my story, really, and how I realized that my mindset was really working against me when I was going through all this. And, outwardly, I was being really positive and doing lots of great things. But inside, I was so negative and feeling so bad about myself and what I was thinking. And really, the missing link for me was when I discovered that how to manage my mindset. And that's when things really started to turn around and change. So that's what the book's about. It's a very practical book. There's lots of tips and tools so that the reader can start working on their mindset very, very easily. But it's all about, you know, giving people hope, giving people inspiration, tools that they can use straight away to sort of get their journey moving again. But yes, I am going to read a little bit about it. So right at the start of the book, I sort of introduced what I was going through and, you know, how I felt at the time. So I'm just going to read a little bit from that. So my fertility journey lasted 10 years. They were long, desperate years full of emotional highs and lows and numerous failed pregnancy tests. Trying to conceive became a hidden obsession of mine. Every month, I monitored my cycle religiously, overanalyzing every little sign that I might be pregnant. I left no stone unturned in my quest to get pregnant. I took every fertility test under the sun, tried so many different drugs, and of course, every natural remedy out there. Who knew the internet would be a source of so many wacky fertility boosting claims? Over the years, I tried more than a few. Finally, my husband and I turned to infertility treatment and spent thousands of pounds on IVF. It was all emotionally and mentally exhausting and a complete drain on our bank balance. My story did end happily, as you will read. For a long time, I felt as though I wouldn't get there. The mental challenge of trying to conceive was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was overwhelming and dominated my life for those 10 years. I was so desperate to be pregnant that I lost sight of what was good in my life, and I came close to breaking point many times. It seemed like everyone around me was falling pregnant very easily, and I was always the one who couldn't get there. The monthly cycle was a familiar pattern filled with fresh hope at the start, leading to anxiety and then disappointment as my period arrived yet again. One of the biggest frustrations was that it felt completely out of my control. I'm the first to admit I'm a bit of a control freak. I've always been used to calling the shots and doing what I wanted when I wanted. But this fertility problem came along and stopped me in my tracks. It was the first time in my life that I wasn't in control, or so I thought. And over time, that led to the most frustrating, depressing, and lonely experience of my life. When I look back on those 10 years, I felt a bit like a swan. On the surface, I was very calm and in control, gliding happily through my life despite not being pregnant. But underneath, the mental challenge of the journey was a daily struggle, and I was paddling frantically to get through the days. No one had a clue what was really going on as I covered it all up. I worked really hard to be positive every day, despite dealing with the fact that the one thing I desperately wanted, to be pregnant, wasn't happening.
I think that really will resonate with pretty much anyone that's, you know, tried and failed to get pregnant at any point in their lives. And again, it just shows to me, the reality of how honest you're being about the story, that you just opened with that very frank and honest memory of what it was like, and the swan analogy. I get that a lot. So at this point, I'm going to start asking you some questions that we've sort of already pre-prepared. And then what I'd like to suggest to everyone is, if you start thinking about sorts of questions that you might like to get Lisa to answer, obviously we might cover them. But if we don't, then you are very welcome, like I say, to put them into the chat box, or to just message me directly, and then we can ask them at the end. At this point as well, we're going to do a very quick interlude of, we're going to offer the chance for you to win a copy of this amazing book, Fertility, Mindset and Meltdowns. How you have to enter basically is really simple. You just have to share about the fact that you're either at the event if you're already online, or go online afterwards and share that you've been to this event. Mention obviously the book title and tag in Lisa. I'm going to put in her social media here. So basically the main place to do this would be Instagram. You can tag Lisa, and then you can use the hashtag, which I'm just going to put in here now as well, so we can track who's entered. And basically, you've got until tomorrow morning to shout about it, and then we will choose tomorrow morning and let you know. And then you can just send us the address, and my colleague Kay will send you out a free book, which is very exciting. So yeah, please do enter. The reason why we're doing this, as you can imagine, is because we really need to get people to know about this book. This book is going to help so many people, but they have to know about it first. And we need that to be front and center when people are searching for something around fertility and mindset and emotions and struggling with the whole journey. We need this to be the first book that they see. So all the social media a buzz that you can provide around it helps. Also, if you when you get the book and when you've read it, if you can share a review on Amazon, on Goodreads, on Waterstones, wherever you've got the book from, wherever you tend to leave your reviews. If you don't tend to leave reviews, maybe make an exception for this one, send share a review on Amazon. It again really helps. It just provides credibility. It shows people that this is a book that can be trusted. And I think with something this personal, there really has to be that trust there. So it would help massively. So thank you for that. That's my PR pitch. Right, we're going to get into a chat then. So what are readers going to get from reading your book? I mean, what I thought it was really clever about this book is that it seems to be in two halves. So maybe you could sort of tell us a little bit about that and yeah, what they're going to get from the book.
Sure. So yeah, it is split into two halves. So the first half is all about what I call as this mindset meltdown, which I felt like I had pretty much for the 10 years I was going through it. So, I really want people to feel like they're not alone on this, and they're not the only one who feels desperate, who feels low and alone and, is going through all these emotions every day that can be really debilitating on your whole life, not just the fertility part of it. So I talk about that, and I'm quite honest with some of the things that I used to think and things that I used to do, crazy things I used to do, like, doing all these early pregnancy tests every month and spending like so much money on those. And, you're not the only one that does all these crazy things. There's lots of people out there doing those. And then I go on to talk about the tools that I use that help me get control of that emotional, whirlwind and try and, kind of tame what was going on in my head. So that's the first half of the book. Whereas the second half is what I call my survival guides. I was on this journey for 10 years, which is a long time. And in that time, all my best friends pretty much got pregnant, had children. I was going to social events with families all the time. It was a lot of tough things you have to do. And then all the medical stuff I was going through. So the survival guides are really my tips for dealing with some of the toughest parts of the journey. So, how do you deal with your best mate telling you that they're pregnant 3 times over? In my case, I had, or how do you deal with, juggling IVF with work? How do you deal with having to go to millions of baby showers when you really don't want to? So I think there's about 14 or 15 different scenarios. So that's something that people can dip in and out of as and when. But it's very practical. I love self-help books, but I find a lot of them aren't very practical. They tell you all this stuff, but then you can't think, okay, well, how do I put that into practice? So I've tried to really give some tools, and there's lots of exercises and things like that. So I'm hoping it's something people can put into practice, at a time when they feel really out of control.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like somebody just taking your hand and saying, look, try this, do this, and whenever I have, not necessarily around fertility, but any kind of sort of major personal challenge, I sometimes feel like I just want someone to swoop in and just tell me what to do. If you do this, you're going to feel a bit better, because you just, which way do I go? So this is like, if you feel like completely lost, this is the book that you go to. And if you even can just read a part of it at a time, it's going to make you feel better, which at that time you don't think it's possible to feel better. But exactly. There is a light at the end of the book, basically, isn't there, rather than at the end of the tunnel. What's the overarching message of the book then?
So I think the overall message is that your mindset does really matter. And actually, it's the one thing you can control on this journey. You can't control when you're physically going to get pregnant. You can't control the medical process. You're on waiting lists for everything. The whole thing is a waiting game, but you can control your mindset. So you can control how you respond to all these things that are going on around you. And if you get your head in the right place, it affects how you feel, but most importantly, it affects then what you do. When you feel you've got a really bad day, you feel really low, you don't tend to get much done, you're kind of not open to things, you make excuses. But when you're feeling really good, you get loads done, you're a lot more open. So it's really about getting your head in the right place.
Yeah, so important, and not just for this either, generally in all senses.
Exactly.
I mean, once you learn those skills, they are applicable for other things that come
Oh yeah.
through life later as well, aren't they? So I mean, why is it so important then to manage your mindset when you're on this journey? What is it about this particular fertility journey that makes it so important, that makes mindset management so important?
I think people don't realize how much their thoughts that they're having impact themselves. So, you know, you're kind of doing all the really positive things. You're taking your vitamins, you're doing, you know, the medical processes you're supposed to do, but then inside you're having all these negative thoughts. So you see a pregnant lady walking down the street and immediately think, well, that's never going to happen to me. You know, I'm not good enough for that. You know, I'm always the one who never gets pregnant. I mean, the way I used to talk to myself was shocking. You talk to yourself like, you know, not even your worst enemy would talk to you.
You'd never talk to anyone else like that. Yeah,
exactly. No. And, you know, one of the things I talk about in the book is about being more compassionate, the way you talk to yourself, you know, and think about what your best mate would say to you.
Yeah.
You know, would you say that to your friend? If you're walking down the street, you saw a pregnant woman, would you say, well, that's never going to happen to you?
Exactly. Can you imagine? Worst friend ever.
Exactly. So I think it's just, you know, that negative chatter that goes on in your head. It's trying to get a control on that so that, you know, it's working for you, not against you. And there's loads written about the mind-body connection as well. And it took me a long time to realize that actually there was a difference between everything I was doing on the outside to try and get pregnant and then everything that was going on inside in terms of what I was thinking and feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's not to say you don't have bad days. You know, I'm not saying, oh, you're going to be this amazing positive person the whole time, because that would be a bit annoying as well. But it's like, you know, you do have bad days, but if you've got the tools, you can sort of bounce back a bit quicker.
Yeah, well, that is exactly it. I mean, there's no miracle fix here, is it? It's
no.
when you do feel really fed up and down, that doesn't end up becoming a pattern that repeats itself over and over and over again until you sort of feel really, really down. Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Exactly. So why do you think people who are going through fertility challenges at the moment are going to be particularly interested in your story? Or why do you hope that they're going to be particularly interested in your story?
I think because, you know, I was on it for 10 years. It was a long time. And I pretty much, I mean, I had unexplained infertility. So that was frustrating in itself because there was never anything wrong with me. So you know, there was nothing that could be fixed, if you like. So that was hugely frustrating. But, you know, I've had all the medical stuff. I've had all the investigations. I've done IVF. I've done IUI. I sadly had a miscarriage. You know, I've kind of had loads of meltdowns, you know, you name it, I've been through it. So I think people will hopefully see that I get what they're going through. I really do. And, you know, there are millions of other people that are going through it as well. Just since I've been on Instagram with all this, actually, I'm amazed at how many people are going through this. And quite open about it, which is really nice to see. And, you know, one of the reasons I wrote the book was because, you know, when I was on my journey, I'd go into the bookshop looking for inspiration, loads of medical books in there, not really applicable to me with unexplained infertility, loads of nutritional books, diet books, but absolutely nothing about the mental strain of it, even though that's probably the biggest side effect of having to face this struggle. So I just thought there's a gap there, really. And now I suppose I see this book as, you know, a nice complement to all those other books that you can buy about fertility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I genuinely don't know of any other books that cover the topics that you cover on this subject. So it is quite unusual, but very needed. I mean, today is obviously World Fertility Day, and so everyone's on social media have been talking about, not everyone, but a lot of people have been talking about their own challenges or celebrating, you know, their success. I look at me, I wondered if that's quite hard for some people, because I think it's great that World Fertility Day is a day, a recognised day, that people talk about it, because I think the more people talk about it, the more it's normalised, the more people feel less alone, blah, 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 blah. But then I also wondered if it just would be a bit upsetting for some people. And it's that double-edged sword, isn't it? Of kind of like, we need to talk about these things, but it's it's hard. It's really hard. Anyway, today's World Fertility Day, whatever your opinions on it. And what have you done today? What have you, I mean, obviously you've launched a book, pretty big. What else have you been doing around this day, and how do you think the book sort of fits in with that day?
Well, it is about encouraging people to be more open. I think that's the thing, because it always has been so hidden, partly because people don't feel comfortable talking about it. So
No.
in the spirit of that, I've gone onto Instagram and done a video, which was really painful. Nobody likes doing a video, but I sat and I talked about, some of the toughest parts of my journey. So I've tried to be really open about it.
Yeah.
And there's lots of organisations like, the Fertility Network UK, which are massive, and they've actually set up the whole National Fertility Awareness Week, which is this week as well. So they've been doing some amazing things this week. Different people talking about their stories, different parts of it. It was a lovely post I shared on LinkedIn actually yesterday of an older lady talking about how she's been judged over her life for not having children, and it wasn't by choice. And it was really interesting because she sort of said, she dealt with it all when she was sort of 30s, 40s, and then obviously people's children grew up. But then she's had a new flurry of it when all these parents then became grandparents.
Yeah.
And it was really, really interesting. So lots of different perspectives and different things being talked about. So I think social media has a great part to play in that, because it's an easy platform for people to talk about their stories if they feel comfortable. But I think a lot of people still don't, and I understand that. It's very, very private.
Yeah. I mean, it's like any kind of sort of very personal health issue. It's like, it's one of those things where we don't talk about it too much. Do you know if people tend to talk about it? Is there parts of the world, like, is it in America, is it a different thing? Do you know anything about fertility in any other places? I'm not sure.
I don't really. I think it just depends on the person, to be honest. I mean, a lot of celebrities talk about it after the event.
Yes.
Which is great, so Jennifer Aniston came out and started talking about everything she went through, which was, long time suspected.
Yes.
But she never said anything at the time, obviously. And that really does help. But I think, even those people, they don't feel comfortable talking about it when it's going on. It's hard to know why. But, I hope this book, I just want people to feel like they're not alone, and that all the crazy things you think and feel and do, other people are doing them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long did it take you to write the actual books? Obviously you said that you've had a bit more time when the kids had grown up and they're at school and secondary school now. So was it a while? I can imagine it must have been difficult to fit it in with everything else.
It was about a year, I think, maybe just under a year. I could never sit at home. Well, partly because the children were here, but even when they weren't here, I was just too distracted at home. So I used to plonk myself in a coffee shop in Guildford and write it there. And it just sort of started as a load of jumbled ideas. And then it kind of just got some structure. And I've always loved writing. In fact, when I told my mum I was doing it, and she said, "Oh, the teachers at your primary school always said you were really good at writing."
Oh, that's so cute.
Tell me that. So I'm finally doing it when I'm 52.
Good for you. And do you think you're going to write any more books?
I do, actually. Yes.
I
am going to be writing another one. Yeah.
Very good. Same sort of topic?
Well, the only other thing I know something about is enough to write a book anyway, is bringing up multiple children. And I've got this idea for, again, another very practical book on that sort of topic.
Nice.
But yeah, we'll see.
Sort of going through more so not just for babies, like actually sort of.
Yeah, going through the years and just things that you don't read in a book. Because again, the sort of person I am, having triplets, oh my God, somebody help me. I went out and bought every book going. But a lot of things you end up learning, you don't learn from the books. And it's just, I kind of wanted to do something very practical around tips and tricks and
Oh, nice. Well, you
Yeah,
have to keep us all posted on that one.
giving my idea away now.
No, it's all right. It's all right. You are the best person to write. I always say it's why are you the best person to write this book? You are the best person to write this book. Let's face it, you've got triplets. So are you going to read us a little bit of from the
Oh,
sort of
yes.
second half now, and then we're going to open up for questions. So get your questions ready, everyone.
Yeah, so I've talked a lot about the emotional side of it, but the other big part of why you need to get your mindset fixed really is it leads on to taking action. I talk a lot about action planning because I found when I was coaching women on this journey, a lot of them would come to me and they really weren't taking any action. They were just sort of drifting along. So I've got a little bit to read, chapter 7, which is called Avoiding Taking Action. So one of the biggest side effects of having a fertility mindset meltdown is that it will stop you from taking action towards your goal of getting pregnant without you even realizing it. There's a great saying that sums this up perfectly. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Or another way of putting it, nothing changes if nothing changes. To create a change in any area of your life, you first have to take action. You must do something different to change the situation, however small that first step may be. But whether or not you take action is often linked to how you feel on a particular day. How many of us join a gym with great intentions, but then find after a month we don't feel like going anymore? Reality check here, you may never feel like going to the gym, but people who are successful take action anyway and will go to the gym even when they don't feel like it because they know it benefits them. And it's the same with your fertility journey. When you're feeling depressed, negative, sad, or anxious, it's hard to find the energy to get out there and take action with your fertility plan. You might not have the energy to take the steps you need to. It may seem too overwhelming. When you come across obstacles or have a medical setback, it's all too easy to give up. Perhaps you hear yourself making excuses. I used to do that a lot. I'd hear myself saying things like, that treatment will never work for me, or my situation is different, so I'm not going to try that, or that's too expensive, I can't do that. My mindset became very fixed, and as a result, I missed opportunities around me. Big things like new treatment options, and small ones like friends making suggestions or new ideas that I would read about but not pay much attention to. When you feel overwhelmed, helpless, and out of control, often that can stop you from acting. But taking regular action is one of the most important steps to getting pregnant. So many of my clients came to me at the point when they were drifting through their fertility journey. They were simply waiting for something different to happen or hoping for a different result each month, rather than taking control, going out there and making it happen. As a result, the weeks, the months, and often years were drifting by and still they weren't pregnant. I can't stress enough how important action is on this journey. Taking small, practical steps forward will take you closer towards your goal of getting pregnant. It will mean you are exploring all opportunities, leaving no stone unturned and stopping at nothing to achieve your goal. Being motivated to take action requires a shift in your mindset. You have to want to do it, and that comes back to what's going on in your head and how your thoughts make you feel.
Perfect. Thank you. That was really good. You're very good at reading. You can do an audio book?
I don't think so.
That's just an option.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd rather get somebody like David Beckham to read my audio.
Oh well, yeah, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Let's get him. Let's get him on board. I'm just going to pop your website link in here, and I'm just going to also remind everyone of the bookshop, the publisher, page, for the publisher shop. So, has anybody got any questions? We've got one that's come through to me, which is basically how can people get in touch with you now, like after this, other than read the book? What's sort of, so I've put that website, your website in, but is there any other way that would make sense?
I'm going to put on my Linktree site as well, which has got a few different links. So it's got the website, and you can sign up to the mailing list on there as well, because I've started a mailing list. So I'm going to do like a monthly newsletter with sort of news and fertility tips, but I'm also starting to work on I've got a plan for the new year to launch a fertility mindset course, which will be a little online course that people can access. So if you'd like to hear more about that, then do sign up to my mailing list. That's and there'll be more coming on that. next year.
Nice, really, really good. So the link tree, for anyone that doesn't know, is if you just go to Lisa's
I'll put it on
Instagram,
here.
and then you just can click on it. It'll be the link in the profile. People are saying that they're very proud of you for writing this book, and somebody also mentioned that they wish they'd had this book when they were going through their IVF journey, and somebody else has said, this is personal to me. So hard. I didn't know I couldn't have IVF on NHS due to my partner already having children. So
oh my gosh,
there's rules and regulations around
yeah.
what access you can have, and I think it depends on where
Well,
you're based as well. And
there's so much of that. I mean, it's so true, because I ended up having the miscarriage. I only had one miscarriage, but I think you have to have 3 miscarriages before you're officially tested. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
oh my gosh.
You know, so in fact, I kind of put my foot down, and then we ended up paying for them, which was a few £100s at the time. But you know, I people wouldn't even know about this stuff, and you can't. It's things like that annoy me, because you know, it just, again, it's holding you back. It's out of your control, and you've got to find a way around this stuff, and it's not always easy.
No, and it's not always an option to pay for stuff. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, you know, you can pay for maybe a bit, but then when do you stop paying for it? And you know, it's very difficult.
An IVF is thousands and thousands of pounds. You know, a few tests is a few £100. You can probably get that together, but 1,000, you know, IVF is so expensive. So yeah, it's awful.
There is, it does seem to be, like I said, a bit of a postcode lottery in terms of what sort of NHS support you can get around this, and but generally around any kind of mental health as well. It's just, it depends on where you are and what resources are available and budget and blah blah blah. And I think some people have it better than others, depending on where they live in the UK. So yeah, I mean, no other questions have come through yet, so if anybody has any questions, I feel like we've just had such a good Q&A session that we've answered everyone's questions.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, or anything you want to sort of close with before we leave.
Just to echo what you said at the beginning, if you do read the book and you like it, it'd be fantastic if you could leave a review, because that really, really does help. Obviously on Amazon or wherever. It is going to be on a few different platforms. We have had a couple of issues. It's going to be on Waterstones. I think it might be on Smiths as well, but I'll let people know about that. But yeah, leaving a review would be amazing.
It would be. And also just telling somebody, you know, I feel like we all know somebody that would benefit from this book. So just, if it's not necessarily you, then telling them, or you know, getting a copy for them would be you know, a really good positive thing to do. Oh, Gillian's just said we've got 2. So we've got Jane said too much background noise, so I'm mute, bless her. Is this a book that's good for someone who's anxious about starting the journey, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. That's a good point, because you know, I can remember, and I remember getting frustrated with this, because I'd say been on the journey 5 years, and then I'd meet somebody who couldn't get pregnant after 5 months, and they'd be in a right state about it, and I'm thinking, you know, you want to try 5 years, love. You know, completely different, because when you're in it, you feel like that. But I think you're absolutely right. You know, you could have been on this journey 2 months, and you could still feel anxious and, you know, concerned and worried, and you might as well start working on your mindset right from the outset. And you know, rather than it's almost harder later, because you kind of got into those patterns of thinking. So absolutely, yeah, I think whenever you're starting to feel those negative emotions and anxiety, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Somebody else has said, I did IVF as a single girl 4 times, and it's great to know that there is something like this out there, so people don't feel alone. It took me 4 years, so that's lovely feedback as well. Really,
yeah, that's lovely.
And there are so many highs and lows, says Gillian, and everywhere you look, I remember seeing everyone pregnant amplified, which
you do.
You sort of notice then every single pregnant person, don't you? And you sort of walking down the street thinking, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. Feels like everyone's pregnant apart from you, sort of thing. So yeah.
Well, it does, and you look at it through rose-tinted glasses as well.
Yeah.
You know, the whole having children thing. You don't see the teething and the sleepless nights and everything else, but which, you know, is another thing. Actually, looking back, I think I talk a lot about you've got to live in the moment and enjoy it, you know, because although it took us so long to get pregnant, we did have some lovely times, which now I look back at really fondly, and you've got to make the most of that time. But yeah, it's hard at the time.
Yeah, it is. And then you mentioned as well about dealing with people making announcements and things. And Becky said, I had a year where a friend announced they were pregnant each month for a year. So that must have felt like a bit of a kick in the face each month.
Oh my goodness, that is really hard.
Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard in that situation because I think it depends how close a friend they are. You know, I remember one of my friends, she got pregnant 3 times when I was trying, and the last time she said to me, I could see it on her face, and she said, "It should be you, it should be you." But I think if it's a good friend, they'll understand, and it's hard because you want to be positive for them.
of course.
But I think, be positive for them and then go home and have a good old cry or have a moan to someone. You've got to let that out. And it's totally normal to feel that way.
Yeah, completely. Like you say, if it's a good friend, they're gonna understand that you're not really great about it, but not any reflection on them. Ben's asked, it's a good book to read before Trying for Kids, so you can mentally prepare yourself, sort of physically and mentally prepare yourself for the journey ahead.
Yeah, I think if you're somebody that gets a bit anxious and tends to overthink things, I think definitely yes, it'll get you in a positive frame of mind. I also talk in the book about you've got to treat it like a project. I know that sounds weird, but if you're buying a house, you've got a really clear vision of what you want. You're on it. You're taking action. You're out there booking viewings, and that's the sort of place you want to get to with this. That you feel really positive about it, and you know what you're aiming for, and so yeah, anything that helps you get in that zone, I think, is good.
Yeah, got that. People are saying that they wish they'd had your book when they were going through their own fertility struggles, and that they will bring so much comfort and practical support to people, which is great. Again, I would encourage anyone who's been through the journey themselves, more than anyone, you get it. So if there is anyone that you could recommend this book to, then that would help them so much now that it is available. And then a lady said, I find it hard as I have had people who struggle getting pregnant and they now have a baby, and saying, when are you having yours? And it's that assumption from people that, why are you not having babies? It's like, well, maybe I can't, maybe like the whole Jennifer Aniston thing, for years people speculated about why she wasn't having children. I mean, that must have just felt awful, being in the spotlight like that all the time. But on a sort of non-celebrity level, there's still people that like to have a comment, aren't there? They like to have a little,
exactly. And like you say, in this situation, you'd like to think they would remember what you're going through. And I've got a section in the book about how to deal with those kind of intrusive questions, and it is really difficult. And I think you have to decide how much you want to talk about it. Do you want to get into a conversation, or do you want to just kind of keep it vague and brush it off? But it is really hard. Yeah,
I think it's about boundaries, isn't it? And knowing where you, as far as you want to go, and not letting somebody feel that they're pushing you over that boundary. It's like, it's such a personal thing. I mean, I remember when I got married, the number of people that very quickly after was like, so when are you going to have a baby? I was like, oh my God, I don't know, and it's just that sort of weird sort of, it's often like the older people as well would sort of feel like it was okay to ask. I don't feel like it was anyone sort of my age. It was the older generation at that point was sort of like,
that's the natural next step. Exactly. Yeah, you just never know who you're talking to. You never know what's going on in their lives, and it's very, very hard.
Becky's talked about how she had basically a sort of a circle of people that she chose to tell information to, and kept it quite within that group, which I think is probably quite a good coping strategy.
I mean, people are very different, aren't they? Some people, like you say, like Becky, want to have a select few people that know. Other people don't tell anybody, literally no one. Whereas other people are very open about it. But it's like, it's hard at work. If you literally tell nobody at work, that can be hard when you then start to go off on appointments and things like that. I always try and encourage people to tell their boss, and if they can. And now there's a lot more like HR support for giving people time off for things like IVF and what have you. So yeah, it's very personal. You've got to decide who you want to talk to about it.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. We're talking about the whole work things. We just had a media inquiry. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, from a sort of business
Personal.
magazine, basically, which is
Yeah.
really interesting because what they're basically saying is that a new report's come out. I'm just reading it now. So, a new report by Fertility Network UK has found that nearly 80% of those surveyed said fertility support at work was important to them when considering a new job. And of those going through fertility challenges, 3 in 4 said their productivity at work was strongly impacted. So, they've asked you for a comment on that. And I think that's really good that people are talking about that in the work context, because as one of the ladies has just said, you know, she finds it difficult. She works in a female dominated environment, and I imagine a lot of chat about babies and all sorts of things. So yeah, I think it's good to have that attention on what businesses and companies could be doing to help people more.
Exactly. And you know, when you're going through fertility treatment, you're up to your eyes on fertility drugs, which make you feel pretty bonkers a lot of the time. So you're highly emotional anyway. You know, you're going off for scans, appointments, sometimes last minute, right, you need to come in for a blood test at 7:30 the next day. So, you know, okay, there's the time off issue, but there's also, it does affect your performance. You're so distracted. And, you know, you've got this big thing going on. It's hard to sort of be as focused on work for those few, you know, you're a super person if you can do everything.
Exactly.
You know, and again, everybody's different. You know, I always like to take a little bit of time off when I was doing my IVF, but I have had clients who said that would be the worst thing for them. They want to be busy, you know, they want to be active just to keep their minds on it. So again, you've got to decide what's best for you. But I think it's just making it more acceptable to talk about it would be great.
Yeah, exactly. That's why articles like this are so important. Obviously, once this article does come out, everyone that's on this, we will share it on socials, and you can have a read of that as well. So yeah, I mean, it's been a very lovely and informative session. I feel like people have been very open and chatting, which is really helpful, and given us more to talk about, which is wonderful. And people are saying they think the book's going to really help them. So I think that's all we can really ask for as an outcome of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, really, no, that's great. Thank you for all the comments. That's brilliant.
Yeah, really appreciate those. It's great to get a bit of interaction because, as Lisa said, you know, tonight's not really the night that everyone wants to be going out anyway. So an online book launch does make sense, but it's also you kind of miss that one-to-one interaction. So it's great to have those kind of comments. Thank you for being involved, everyone. Like I say, if you do want to try and win a copy of Fertility Mindset and Meltdowns, then you're very welcome. Don't feel you have to share even that you've been at the event. You can just reshare one of our posts or one of Lisa's posts, or you know, but just make sure that hashtag is in their Mindset and Meltdown, so we can actually see that you've entered that competition, and we'll let you know who's won the free book tomorrow. If you do buy a copy, please do, like I say, leave a review on Amazon, Goodreads, Waterstones, wherever you get the book from, and any support you can give, like I say, passing the book on to other people, mentioning it in the future would be great. We really want this book to help as many people as possible. So thank you, Lisa, for writing this book and being so brave to talk about your personal experience as well as the professional side of things. I think it's something that is very inspiring for so many people, and so many people have been through it, but not everybody's managed to write a book about it. So congratulations on that huge achievement. Well done on already being an Amazon bestseller. You're number 11. I don't
believe that.
Be in the top 10 very soon. That is a definite thing that's going to happen. And yeah, just want to say thank you to everybody for joining.
Thank you so much, everyone.
It's been really lovely evening, and yeah, this is it. We're done. So please go and have a lovely rest of your evening. And like I say, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.